My name is Joey, and I'm actually Joanna, but everyone knows me as Joey. My last name's Downs. I live in Manila, in the Philippines, but I'm part Spanish, part American, and part Filipino as well. I run an ancient rhythmic art therapy workshop. It's called the Children's Beading Circle. I have a background in jewelry making, so I was at some point in time an artisan jewelry maker, and just the contact with the stones and the crystals was amazing for me, and that was an amazing experience. And there came a point in time where that got a bit boring, and I was looking for something more, and I wanted to share it. I wanted to share not just the final product, which is the jewel in itself, but I wanted to share the experience of actually going through the process of making it. And so I started with my children. They were like my guinea pigs. Both of my children are indigo children. I'd have them touch the different stones and help me make jewelry, and we would bead together. And I immediately noticed that they would completely calm themselves. And my youngest, who's very hyperactive and, has been diagnosed medically with ADD, immediately would just go into like a different sort of frequency. I didn't really know much except that they were probably getting the calming effects of the stones. So whenever you engage in any, what they call an ancient rhythmic movement, meaning to say it could be crocheting, it could be coloring, which is why coloring books are so popular now. So it could be anything from sewing, even if you go back to old times, women washing in the river, they weren't really thinking about what they're washing. It's that's coming automatically. And the movement is just natural. Your focus is there, but yet your mind sort of becomes free, detaches from past and present, and is completely in the now moment. And that is the alpha state, which is a very healing state. It's actually the now moment state, they call it. And once you're in that alpha state, there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of calming, and everything just becomes more peaceful. So for children who are very hyper, or whose parents complain that their children, are always fidgeting or can't concentrate or don't focus or, have problems in school because they can't sit still or normally can't deal with the traditional environment. It's great to be able to do things like this, and it's just very calming. And I have a lot of parents when they enroll and they tell me, you're gonna notice that my child moves a lot. So, if he does, just let me know and I'll tell him to keep more still, or I'm really sorry, but my child tends to, move. It never happens. They're completely engrossed in what they're doing. It's funny, after I decided I was gonna definitely start engaging in this and helping initially my immediate circle. So my children and the children of some of my very good friends as well. And I saw the results, and they're just really completely focused and calm. So at that point in time, I realized that there was that connect between the brain activity and the ancient rhythmic art movement. And then with research and actually doing, online studies and buying books, I realized that what that does is you go into an alpha or a theta state, brainwave state. That inspired me to actually create something formal, so to speak. It's sort of like a therapy in a way without the fear of actually going to therapy. So this is just a more natural form of helping heal them. That way they release all the amount of electricity that they have, which now I see is very prominent in a lot of the rainbow children because of the amount of the use of electronics and the use of video games. So that's a lot of stimulus into the brain, and they end up with so much electricity in their body. I've never studied anything of this, and you do realize you do get attuned to certain things when it is part of your path. So with that being said, I was attuned into being able to tap into children's energy fields. So I immediately can tell, for example, if a child is a rainbow child just by being with them, actually, by being with them in the same room. Principally, they're right brain oriented, that's for sure. They're very sensitive, very creative, and they just have a wisdom to them, like years of experience, despite being 6, 7, 8 years old, which is why, like most of the parents who speak to me about their indigo children, one of the first things they'll always say is, my child tends to answer back and doesn't take orders from me or doesn't listen to me. And they have their own mind and and that's a classic. We get that all the time. So it's like, they're wise beyond their age, so to speak. They definitely vibrate at a higher frequency, because they don't have as much carbon-based DNA. So their DNA is more crystalline-based. And when you have a crystalline-based DNA, you're vibrating at a higher dimension, so to speak. And you're fully conscious. So you're not dormant or asleep, or your consciousness is right there, which is why they have a hard time fitting into the world as it is right now, because the world as it is right now, its vibration is much lower than their vibration. So a lot of things they don't get. The structure, for example, the strict structures, the why do we do this? I get asked that a lot by a lot of the children I work with. But, like, for example, my own son will ask me, why in school do children have to sit in a table facing the blackboard and everyone has their own chair with a desk that's attached to it? And why can't people sit on the floor and just sit where they want? And why does the teacher have to stay in front? Why can't she move? Or why can't she be at the back? And, why can't we be in the front? And, this has been the typical classroom setting from, for ages. No one's questioned it. And it's this generation that's questioning it. Things we've taken for granted, and we've never even asked ourselves. They're definitely wiser, despite, the generational gap. They're actually our guides. So it's funny because they're actually our teachers. So we also have to come up as parents or as guides of these children. We also have to be clear about that they are actually our teachers and we're actually learning a lesson. This is what I try and tell a lot of the parents of the rainbow children that I work with, especially the parents that aren't so open and feel it more like a burden that they have a child with these characteristics. And that's the first thing that I try to explain is, we have to, there's obviously a lesson here. And that's what we have to, as parents, be aware of. You may not know the lesson per se, but your child's actually trying to teach you something. Most of our parenting skills are actually based on the parenting skills of our parents towards us. And that's sort of what we tend to apply to our own children as well. And what my generation's encountering with their children is all of a sudden everything that our parents were teaching us doesn't work with them. Parents, if they are aware, then normally they will choose the right people to help their children, be it, therapists or sports again, or centers, or the right education system for the child. Because a lot of these children don't do well in traditional settings. They tend to thrive more in a progressive setting. So sometimes I've seen that happen. Like a lot of parents maybe realize that their child's not coping in the traditional setting. And that's sort of the first red flag. And that's when reality kicks in about their children perhaps being rainbow children. It's normally in school. They'll get that alert first. My child's not thriving. My child's not listening. My child is not academically shining, because that tends to be another one. It's actually amazing. They're normally very, very smart, but they don't shine academically in the traditional setting. I've seen a child who can't add. You can ask him 10 plus 4 and he'll be scratching his head for 5 minutes, and he's a chess champion. So you're like, okay, how does that even make sense? There's a huge variety of rainbow children. I think at least I've encountered, many different kinds of rainbow children. There are those who do actually do well in traditional settings, as long as maybe outside there's a lot of nurturing going on and understanding, and they can engage in other things. And so that there's a channel to that somewhere outside school. But then if there's not, then that's where the difficulty is. So I wouldn't want to say there's an ideal school, but I think any school that takes into consideration nurturing them, helping them develop as individual people, and not sort of the old mentality of at a certain age, the child's supposed to know how to do this and everyone's the same, or they all develop and grow simultaneously at the same time. Like at age 8, you're supposed to know how to multiply and know the timetable, until 5. That's so, I don't think that's right. That's very old school. I think, each child, has the right to develop at their own pace. So any school that nurtures that, I think is excellent. It's the biggest obstacle I encounter, definitely in what I do, would be you need the parents' awareness to be able to help guide these children. Without the parents' awareness, it's very difficult. Now, see, what happens without the parents' awareness is normally the child, come adolescence, will feel misunderstood. That is the danger. And another big danger I see is medication as well. And what the medication actually does is it suppresses the natural gifts of the child. Isn't it more fun, to be doing crafts and music and art and sports are the best thing, and just a really good diet and a loving family that understands, and the parents' awakening or the parents' awareness, consciousness about the rainbow children, who they are, where they come from, what they intend to do, what their paths are, is so important to help guide them so that they continue to stay in their paths, because they are the future of this world. They are the future directors or orchestrators of the world. Humanity is so hijacked right now. All you have to do is look around, and we're so, there's so many distractions everywhere. And this is to avoid spiritual growth. You look at TV, for example, and just the quality of the TV shows right now compared to even, let's say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we were happy watching documentaries about nature, animals, and now we're watching reality TV. We're watching, what other people do in their day-to-day. And that I think is sad. So we're being distracted and not focusing on us and on our spiritual growth. I feel that right now there's sort of a consciousness hijack. You see it in the street and people are just not living in the now. You used to walk down the street 10 years ago and people were actually looking around at where they walked through and, observing trees, plants, people, buildings, whatever it is you're walking through. And now people are just on their phone. I think the world eventually has to change, meaning to say, if we continue in this direction, basically because it's very egoistic. Humanity is becoming very egoistic, and it's all about material gain. And this is what we're teaching, through television. It's all about gaining material wealth. And that's one thing I've noticed with the rainbow children. They're not there at all. I mean, material wealth for them, they're more concerned about being compassionate, about equality, fairness in the world. I get that asked a lot. Like, why are there poor people? Why are there rich people? Why can some people have access to something and others don't? And these are questions by 7, 8-year-olds. And they're not concerned about, getting the latest toy. That's amazing. So it's in them already, that sense of observing the world and seeing where the flaws are. So these children are future explorers, teachers. There are future doctors, many of them. I think eventually the world will become a better place because they will be at their jobs and doing their jobs, understanding that they need to drive the world and humanity out of its direction where it's naturally going to now, which is like ego-based, and turn it back to a more heart-based world. They're here to say, okay, we have to shift things, we have to change things,